Was poppin'. Welcome to Nicky and Moose. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. What's up, Moose?
What up, y'all?
And welcome to episode 82.
Come on.
And on this episode, we're talking about setting the tone with Elliot Wilson, to niche down or not to niche down with Nicky Jam and Gary V. Sticking with one thing with your business with Ian. And then, is there such thing as privacy with Wallo? So, how are we feeling with this, Moose?
I like the remix of this. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's a nice balance, a few different really creative ideas with business principles tied in. So, yeah, I like where we're going with this.
All right, let's get into this intro.
Two kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force, but more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
So let's welcome all our audio and video viewers into Nicky and Moose. You know what I mean? We love you. We appreciate you. This is going to be a fire episode. Moose, how are we feeling?
Man, feeling pretty good. I'm excited. We're recording a lot later than we typically would, but it's cool. You know, it's Ramadan, so we're usually up this late anyway, so it works. Thanks for working with me, though. I do appreciate that. So,
this is
did
never
a last
a problem.
minute audible. Yeah, there's a little remix audible at the line, like, hey, Hut 52, we're gonna have to record really, really, really late, but yeah, let's get it.
Oh, listen, on Saturdays I chill and research, so it is all good. He thinks I'm not a night owl, so he really kind of like, he's like, is this too late? I'm like, yo, I'm chilling. What are you talking about? Saturday. Oh. Now, how early am I going to wake up on Sunday morning is a different story.
Right.
But I'm up now. We up now.
Yeah.
So when you're listening
it works
to
this month.
Huh?
I said, no, it works this month. Anytime outside of this month,
you'll be yawning. No. You definitely be yawning. Even though people are going to listen to this in the morning, shout out to the people who listen to this when this first comes out, the viewers, this is probably nighttime, but you would be yawning around midnight. Oh, for sure. Yeah. We've done many.
Big facts.
We've done many.
Big facts. Big facts.
But
shout out to still the Floyd episode. Sorry, before you go into it. Yeah, shout out to the Floyd episode, which was our first like podcast episode ever.
Yeah.
That we recorded at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning because we were having all types of technical difficulty.
No, I'll one up you. Shout out to our very first live episode together when we recorded at midnight and I was there at 3 p.m.
Oh my goodness.
That episode 1 and that episode was definitely for the books. Definitely for the books.
Crazy vibes.
Yeah,
crazy vibes.
It was great. But let's get into this episode. So this very first one, I feel like we've touched a little bit on this topic before of, do we do things all on our own? When do we delegate? When do we not? And I was watching an interview with Elliot Wilson. Elliot Wilson, hello, no disrespect, that he did with Complex about a couple of years ago, just pretty much going over like his career. And he was talking about what he does with his team, because now that he's like high up in title and, you know, this new like digital voice of hip hop, he's like, yo, what should I do when I have my team? How do I delegate? How do I don't? We got a clip of it and let's talk about it.
Something new. I'll do everything myself at first and sort of set the template of how I want something, and then I can start to pull back more and more and give away authority and give away decisions and give away things and oversee it. But first I want to set the blueprint of what I think this is, because I have to get my hands dirty myself to figure it out. And then once that happens, then I can slowly start to feel like I can pull back and then be open to other people's strengths.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because if you think about it, whenever we're in conversation with anyone who has some form of team with them, or supervising power, management power, however you look at it, or we should just say decision-making authority, and you ask them, hey, why don't you delegate? The first thing, or one of the first things that they always say is, because by the time I tell someone how to do it, and then I have to go correct them, I could have just done it myself, right? Like, they don't want to delegate simply because they're concerned that people are not going to do it to their expectation or their standard. I like this approach because he's telling you, rather than me going through that hula hoop with you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you do it. I'm like, nah, this ain't good. You do it again. Then I got to go do it myself anyway.
Right.
You know what? Let me start off first.
Right.
Let me start off first and kind of like show you, set the standard, let you know, hey, how I want it. So we don't have to go through the back and forth multiple times, you know, before saying, okay, this is a good way. So I like that start. And I also think it takes it through that, like, that old school mentality of, I never want to tell someone to do something that I've never done. So I really like that piece of it too, right? Because now if I say, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z, well, you've seen me do X, Y, Z at some point in my career, and I'm not disrespecting you or talking down on you or thinking less of you in any kind when I take this approach, because it's something that I've literally had to do myself. I figured it out. And now, last piece too, Nix, when I give feedback, I could give real direct feedback because I know what it takes to succeed in the space. Yeah. So I think some of those points are definitely spot on.
I'm a big believer in, to be a leader, you have to get your hands dirty first. Not maybe the whole time, but like, I can't respect somebody who's telling me something who's never done it. I can't respect it. I think I had that problem in the military, where a lot of people were put in position and just never did what I did. And so I couldn't respect you as far as direction wise, because I knew more than you. So why would I listen to you just because you have rank? So it's almost kind of the same thing. Like, I could only respect those types of leaders, those people who are running point of any kind of project or whatever, that they have experience. Now, you know, we're not, and I don't expect you to have the full-blown expertise kind of vibe, but you know the basics and you know what the final result's supposed to look like. So for me, since I always learn of what not to do, like, I've learned from a lot of people on what not to do. I know not to just delegate something I know nothing of, because how am I supposed to really know what it's supposed to be like? And then I'm comparing based off what I've seen other people do and not necessarily what I've really truly experienced. So I love what he says with that. I think my question to you is, when is a perfect time to delegate? Because sometimes we keep it too long. It's not that we don't want to delegate. It's like, all right, just this one more thing. Now, how about, let me take care of this. Now, granted, there, like you said, there are some people that, all right, this takes too much time. Let me just do it myself. Yeah. But sometimes it's just hard to understand when to let go. What do you think is kind of, and I know it's like scenario basis, but I mean, is there metrics that we could go based off?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever about you as the person who's delegating. It's about how well you know the people who you're going to delegate to, right? Because it's a matter of being able to set your people up for success.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm thinking about, okay, let me get on to something else, but at the same time, there's that responsibility to make sure that the part that you are working on gets handled correctly.
Right.
So you're always thinking like, okay, can I give this to somebody else? But more importantly, do they have the time and the talent to be able to follow through on what I'm handing them in its entirety so that we do land on a successful spot, right? So I always think about that piece. It's like, okay, it's not so much about how I feel, but are the people that I'm delegating to, are they in a position where they're going to succeed with the task that I'm giving them? But for myself, I'm always thinking about the time and the value of my own time, right? I thought I was a pioneer some time back, but I guess this is a universal thought. But it's that concept of, hey, you should know the value of your hour, and the things that you're working on, if they're not in line with what you produce on an hourly basis, as much as possible, you want to offload some of those concepts. So like some people they take the idea of a penny saved is a penny earned a little bit too far. Let's say your hour is worth $50.
Okay.
Just bare minimum, $50. And you come across, say, an extra charge on your credit card, and you're like, nah, this charge is not correct. I'm about to go in. I got to get this thing disputed and get it off. The charge is $7. You spend an hour and a half trying to get this thing off, and you do get it off.
Right.
And it's like, woohoo, like I got it off. But it's like, but is it worth it?
Yeah.
And you just spent an hour and a half to save $7 when you could have made, technically at the same time, 75 minus 7, there goes your whatever, $68. You know, so it's like, I think when you're thinking as a person, hey, what things should I delegate? I think you should take into consideration the value of your time. But when you're thinking, who should I delegate to? You have to take into consideration the value of the person that you're delegating to, and their talent, their skill set, and their ability to handle that task that you're about to push their way.
That's a good thing. Now, what do you say about trust? Like, so with Elliot Wilson, he has such a powerful role in the hip hop culture.
Yeah.
And to run certain pages, keep certain playlists right, just staying in pulse with hip hop culture, like there has to be a level of trust with certain people. And I'm more like, okay, especially, and it's so funny because I had this live earlier with somebody who follows E and myself, and like there's always the battle of generations, right? So which causes trust issues. So what I mean by that is, like, of course, the older generation, not calling my man old, but is going to be like, yo, they don't have the drive, they don't have the ambition, they don't add value. Like when we did it, like we find it, like, of course, great, cool,
Back
right?
in my days.
Yeah. And then of course, like, I'll wake up super early and I'll add value wherever I go and woo, woo, woo. And I'm like, okay, now let me be devil's advocate. Maybe you don't find value because it's not the way you used to do it, but they're adding tremendous value that you're not seeing in their own way, but you're very blinded by, if they don't do the paper route, they don't go out in this, that, like, there's technology now.
Right.
A different way of adding value or filling in the gaps may seem a lot easier to you, but that's how they add value, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, I get it a little bit. I get what you're saying. And I'm just like, what you did, we do things in order so the next generation don't have to. And then you get mad they don't do the same things you do.
Seriously.
What are we talking about? But that also goes with like how you got the position, how you got the job, how you got the certain title. Now you're creating a team and you have to delegate. How could one gain trust or prove that they add value or they are worthy of this certain task if they didn't do maybe certain things that you feel that's what I'm saying. Like there's always going to be a trust situation for some, not all, right? Not all, but for some, which will require patience as well. Mm-hmm. What is something to help out? Like,
no, for sure. Well, shout out to Shaq. He was on the Pivot podcast, and I was listening while I was driving yesterday. Great episode, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I love what he said, right? Because he was talking about his father and how he was raised and then how he's raising his children. Yeah. And he was like, I'm not raising my children the way my dad raised me because they're not growing up in the same environment. Mm. So when I was growing up, I was growing up in the hood, whatever it is. So my dad had to take certain measures with me that I don't have to take with my children because, let's just say whatever, my kids are growing up on the hills. That's different than the hood, right? That's like a totally different environment. So they're exposed to something different. I can't expect the same thing out of them. So just about the point about the next generation, I like people who are forward thinking to recognize what's going on in my space or in the space. And I can make decisions based on that, not just based on how I made them 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was growing up. So that's got to be the way all the time. But directly to your point about trust and things of that nature, especially when it comes to delegating and working on our development project is how I gained this experience firsthand. Trust can be shared. Right. Responsibility can't. Mm. So, yeah, because I can say, I trust Nicky. I'm going to hand this off to Nicky and I know she can get it done. Right. But if that task is under my responsibility or it's under my general umbrella of responsibilities, when things go wrong, I know that most people are not going to step up and be like, hey, that's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. And even if it is, it's your responsibility. Like it's your department. It's your arena, right? Like you say, you're that person in title who's needed for that. Right. So I can't expect the people who I delegate to take responsibility for something that I'm over. So I can trust you, but the responsibility part still falls back on my part. So that's how I've noticed or learned to have just a little bit of almost like a push and pull type relationship with delegating and trust. So, okay, I trust you because I think you're a great person. You have the ability, you follow through in the past and the history is great. But I also notice responsibility is mine. So that can mean I'm gonna do my due diligence even after I hand it off and you do it. I'm just gonna double check. That doesn't mean I don't trust you, but it's because it's my responsibility and I know that part can't be shared. Mm-hmm. I got to do what I got to do to make sure I'm taking care of my own responsibility. So that's what I've noticed about that part when it comes to delegating. It's like, okay, I can pass you the rock and I trust you, but the responsibility piece, I can't pass that off. That's always going to be mine.
That makes sense. So for our listeners and viewers, how do you see yourself as a leader when it comes to your team? Yeah. Like, are you the one that kind of gets your hands dirty and then delegates? Are you the one that gets your hands dirty and stays dirty and has a problem delegating? Or are you the one that just delegates with no problem? Right. Just you are the leader. Let us know. Put in the comments, DM us, all that great stuff. Now let's talk about very important topic, niching down, right? Now, I already have a devil's advocate to this clip, but Gary V posted a interview that he had with Nicky Jam, who is a reggaeton artist. And speaking of how Nicky Jam got as big as he did. So let's talk about it.
When I went to Colombia, I saw it was 65 million people and my career was in a downfall. So I said, if I can make this country love me, if I can make a #1 national hit in this country, I'll get 65 million people to back me up. And if I get 65 million people to love me, other people from other countries like, why this guy has so many views?
You understand that that's a talent that will never go away from you, right? To have the understanding to get up, go, execute like that, oof. What Nicky understood there is something that all of you can take from, whether you're an entrepreneur or a music artist or a teacher, an executive. The reality is when you can win with your base, you can build from there. He was able to win in Colombia and go global. I was able to win in wine and build from there. Too many people are trying to boil the ocean. Win with your neighborhood, win with your small genre, win with your age group, win with your small micro interest graph. Win small to win big.
See, if Gary Vee didn't end it like that, I had so many jokes. Like, oh yeah, no, we could just, look at the country that we're in and say, oh, there's only 65 million. If I do this one good thing, then I could be global. No, duh, 65 million people. Like, what? However, that's if Gary Vee didn't say what he said. I love this clip because it breaks down concentrating on local, right? So bare minimum, what Nicky Jam was saying, yo, I'm staying local. Like, I'm not concerned about getting the whole Hispanic community. I'm not concerned about getting all of North America, South America. Like, I'm not concerned about I'm not none of that. I'm home. My home is Colombia. I'm going to concentrate on that. I'm going to figure out how to get a hit there. And that right there is going to add up to where my music is going to go global. From a more local standpoint and a smaller standpoint, are we famous? Are we popular? Are we selling out? Are we converting with just our own city? With where we are. But, of course, with social media, we seem as if we need to talk to the whole world. And I respect that Gary Vee was like, yo, that's a talent that you saw the importance of being local. Like, if you can concentrate on taking care of these people and focusing on this particular thing, then it's going to be undeniable that it's about timing at that way that you'll get further. So it'll go from city to state to coast to nationwide to then global. Like, the issue, and I will always continue to say, is that social media creates unrealistic expectations of what our brand and business is supposed to do and the audience is supposed to talk to, that we forget that we were made to speak to one specific audience first that is going to carry us out to all the different places. Now, as I said, it's Nicky Jam thinks big, right? But I do believe that when we think of artists, and he may have went through this too. This is just a clip to where maybe he did go from like his little hometown, getting that local spot, taking care of that city, taking care of, to maybe, that particular county or whatever they have it over there, to then, half of Colombia, and then the other half, and then maybe the lower half, to where now his name is ringing out through the whole country. And now he captured the 65 mil, which was his grand goal, to then go global. So there's a process of getting that big picture. So there's nothing wrong thinking that way. But I do love that he didn't say, yo, I want the whole world. I want you know, I want this and that. Like, he was like, yo, I counted it up. It has this amount of people. It's a good amount of people. I think 65 million people is a great amount of people.
What a niche.
I mean, you know?
Yeah.
But for those people who are like, I can't get 65, but you could possibly get the amount of people that are in your city. You could get maybe the people that are in your building. You could get, like, you gotta, it's bit by bit by bit, and allowing your work and allowing the word of mouth to carry on your stuff instead of praying and hoping that this is going to work.
Yeah, well, I think the part that sticks out to me here is that for you to really get in tune with your niche, you have to lower your pride. Because what I know about Nicky Jam, and I'm sure there was more context in that interview outside of just that clip, when he made that transition to Colombia, he was going through a pretty rough time in his life, right? Like that was a rough patch for him. And it's interesting because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's originally from Puerto Rico, or at least his parents are of Puerto Rican descent. So like he's not Colombian.
But when he said that, I was like, it made me question a lot. I'm about to look it up as you speak.
Yeah, no, the full context, he might be like half and half Puerto Rican, half Dominican, if I'm not mistaken. But because of what was going on in his life, he went to Colombia. But the reason why I'm saying the main principle here is not allowing your pride to get the best of you. You could have went to a country like Colombia and said, oh, I'm not about to serve these people. I'm Puerto Rican, or I'm Dominican, or I'm better than everybody else.
Okay, you know what? We need to definitely get way more context. He's Dominican and Puerto Rican.
Yeah. No, that's what I figured, because I know he's like one of the originals. Yeah. As reggaeton really started making its way, like he's one of the originals, and a good amount of the artists of that era were Puerto Rican and or Dominican. So I figured that was the case. But again, I just remember a good friend of mine really like filling me in about that particular interview, and that's how I know a little bit more to it. So he transitioned to Colombia, or went to Colombia because of what was happening in his life. But again, the part that's more important is the fact that he didn't allow his pride to get the best of him and went to a new country, lifting his nose above everybody else, pretending to be better, but instead saying, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to serve these people. I'm going to figure out ways to connect with them. And I know if I do good by them, they're going to rally behind me. And then I can get the 65 million, to jump behind my songs or me as an artist. So I think that's how it goes down. But I think the idea of pride is definitely important here. My question though is, what do you think about, I've always heard you can't be a ruler over your own land, right? Like this concept, and maybe I'm paraphrasing, but this idea that your hometown people aren't going to rock with you until you blow up somewhere else. Like, and then at the same time, you hear the other part of it, which is like, well, you got to niche down and really focus on your core people, and then it can work. And of course, when you say it like that, your core people may not necessarily be in your backyard, but I do want to bring that phrase into it as well. This idea that people in your backyard may not always respect you. You got to blow up elsewhere. What's your take on that, especially as it relates to like niche and, growing your brand or your community? What's your take on that? Do you pay attention to that at all?
So before I answer, I got backstory.
Okay.
I had to get backstory real quick, right?
Oh,
so,
great.
14, he had his first EP, which was in 95, which caught Daddy Yankee's attention. They had a group actually, but split, right? And then his career went down, and he went to Colombia afterwards, like 2014, to rejuvenate his career. So that's where he was in Puerto Rico, but his family moved to Puerto Rico when he was 10 years old. But then he went to Colombia afterwards. So, okay, I just needed quick context on that, because I was like, I swore my man was Puerto Rican. I was like,
Yeah, makes sense.
There
Makes sense. I thought
gotta
the same
be a
thing.
way.
All along, I was like, I know for sure.
Right.
A
It
big
made
part of
me
the groups that
question. I
came
was
out
like-
there was, I knew something was happening.
I was like, I could have sworn the Puerto Rican Day Parade, but neither here nor there. Okay, so here's the thing. So because I am such a hip hop fan, I look at New York and how New York rappers are really not known anywhere else but New York place. Like there's some outliers, right? That come out and they're like, oh, we know them and they come from New York and everything like that. But there's a lot of rappers that just stay local. But that I think that's any state, right? There's outliers, but there's a lot of people that stay local. My thing is, an audience is an audience. And if you are a master of your craft, you could break out of that small local situation. Some people are only meant to be local heroes. And that is okay, right? Others, based off their work, based off their relationships, based off sometimes luck, they are able to get out from being local. I do believe social media makes it easier to be seen outside of local, but it also depends on what you're doing, that almost it's a requirement and an easy layup to stay local, like to start local, not stay local, but to start local. So I don't necessarily find it a bad thing. I don't feel like it's a jinx or any, but I have seen kind of like the good side of staying local, and then like you go local, you just stay right there. Like, and I think, you know what I feel like? I feel like it's those New York fans that love the Dallas Cowboys. Like,
right.
no offense, please, Cowboy fans, don't come for me. I'm just very confused when New Yorkers who live in New York all their whole life, all of a sudden just love Dallas Cowboys. It's the weirdest thing for me, so bear with me.
And the Red Sox. And the Red Sox too. And the Red Sox too.
Right. It's just the weirdest. It's like they're rebels. They're super rebels.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like that when you don't start local and you just go, like, if it's that shocking to me. Like, why didn't you stay home? Why didn't you work here? Like, but once again, everything is scenario based. Certain professions don't necessarily need to rely on location. And so some people do, just to get a buzz, just to start things off, just to, I believe like anybody who starts off in Atlanta is just such in a good place.
Right.
I really do, because their collaborations are amazing, where maybe compared to other places, it's not as good. I think places have gotten better. Like New York has definitely gotten better with collaborations. But we're so like on the go, focused, all that great stuff, that it's a bit harder. So I'm cool with either or, but I'm always like, what can you maintain right now? What can you do right now that will create small wins? If you could create the small wins within locally, then do that. If you know you could create small wins from a wider standpoint and not make people feel disconnected, and you're still solving pain points, then, then go from a, I don't know, statewide. Go more for a coast-wide, nationwide, ethnicity-wide. I'm cool with that, as long as you're creating momentum and small wins.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I like that.
Yay. Now we go from niching down to not doing one thing. This is the conversation. So
Polar opposite?
Yeah, total opposite. I'm confused. So shout out to the FAQ podcast. Love you guys. Fuzz and Q have a great podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I don't even pub nobody else, but they're great. And they had Ian, aka the Master Investor. Shout out to him too. And Ian said something very interesting, which, we're taught master one and do one and everything makes sense and woo woo woo. And Ian's like, nah, none of that. Let's listen.
Because if you only stay in one lane, you're going to end up being a dinosaur, and then, or in the case of the music industry, tech will eat up, because they hated Sean Parker but loved Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs was genius enough to be the good version of Sean Parker. And Napster. Came out the 99-cent single and ruined the music industry. Yeah. Netflix did the same thing in the movie industry. So don't want to just stay in your lane, because at some point you end up going out of business as a result, and you have no protection. Yeah. You want your business to be in a position, no matter what happens, can't go out of business and money constantly.
You just gave me some more ideas.
Okay. We building. We building.
Right.
We
Rebuilding.
Right.
Rebuilding.
Real quick, shout out to the FAQ merch that I don't have.
I didn't know they have merch.
Yeah, did you see it?
Wow.
Shout out to them. I don't have it. I don't have a hoodie. I don't have a hat. I don't have anything. Q. And I know Isaiah's gonna clip this up. Q. Buzz. We highlight y'all sometimes. Sometimes.
Good amount of time. Good amount of time.
Y'all have great interviews. Great interviews.
Great.
Don't have this, but it's okay. It was great. We shout out to Marcus from the Breakfast Club that we interviewed. He has a hoodie. He has a hoodie.
Wow, all our guests are slacking right now. What's up,
No.
guys?
He has a FAQ hoodie.
Oh, he has an FAQ. I
Yes,
thought
he has
had
a
a hoodie,
FAQ.
like
No.
the Breakfast Club hoodie.
He doesn't have a hoodie. He has an FAQ hoodie.
I wonder how that happened. That's interesting.
Right. I don't know, but most go ahead. My bad. I just wanted to say I don't have a hoodie or any or shirt or something. I mean, it's about to be summer or spring, whatever. I skip summer. I skip
May.
spring.
Yeah.
I skip spring. I just go straight to
I
summer.
wear hoodies in the spring, summerish. Yeah.
No, not summer. You don't wear hoodies in the summer.
Hey, listen, when we go, when we used to have our conferences in those hotels, you're going to see me in a hoodie.
No, this is true.
Anytime. Those hotels be brick.
Oh, these are true. Okay.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all good. It works. I just wanted to support you, and just be like, the hoodies. Come on.
Facts. Oh, yeah. Facts.
Come on.
Even though it's a reach on summer, but I got it.
Right. Yeah, that's it. No, but I like this approach, man. I think it's actually brilliant. And I think as of late, a lot of people have been speaking to how the quote has been incomplete or has been misinterpreted.
Yes.
Have you heard about that? I got to go do the research.
God. That's all I hear about people. Like, I think Connie said it too. Shout out to Connie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It has me in this mode like, hold up, I'm about to go back and like research all the cliches that I know. I just got to make sure that they're actually correct. I'm not out here speaking, just regurgitating other people's messages,
right?
Which is a little crazy. Right. But I will say, from a business standpoint, clearly business standpoint here, it does make sense to not from Jump Street jump into other niches or other areas of the market, but bare minimum, pick a spot and study. Okay. Pick a spot and monitor, because you want to know, and you'll know eventually you're going to have interest at first. And then your interest is going to build into intuition, where you're going to start to feel what is coming next, or you're going to start to predict how one thing may impact another. And monitor that intuition. Don't just let it go dead. Don't just let it go dry. Actually follow through on that intuition, because it could be another one of your gifts starting to brew in the pot, saying, hey, we got something coming up next.
Right.
Hey, pay attention to what's happening here. So I feel like I'm in a point in my life where I'm starting to go from interest to intuition, and I'm starting to trust my instinct. I love how all three of those words started with the I's. For you wordsmiths out there who just seen that was unintentional, but it did rhyme. So just go with it, right? I love when that happens. But you got to trust your instinct to say, nah, I want to go with this, because eventually you're going to need to make some of the adjustments and bring in these new ideas or new concepts that might seem a little foreign, a little intimidating to people, into your business somehow, integrate it. Another I word. Wow, this is crazy. This is
crazy.
Bananas. This is just out of control.
This is crazy.
Bananas. But I will say, those are the type of things that will add. I've always talked about adding life to your business by making your brand younger or making your business model younger. I love what you did, right? Integrating the metaverse into the learning world, or into the masterclass, personal, professional development, brand development, however you want to look at it. But we integrate Web3, or where the future will be now. So we start getting acclimated. We're early adopters. We're the first to the space. We're going to be a lot more accustomed than people who are trying to jump in when it's already hot.
Right.
So that's an advantage, right? We talked about NFTs quite a bit. Again, one of those things that, hey, it was new, especially maybe sometime last year when it was first starting to really jump. We talked about, hey, start paying attention to some of these models, because it's going to make your business model a little bit more well-rounded, and you're not just stuck on your one area. I hate to go here, but a lot of the restaurants that could not survive the pandemic, it's because they kept putting off going digital or digitizing or utilizing some of these delivery services. And granted, I know that business owners, especially as someone like myself who was in the space, is going to say that those services, their fees are horrendous.
Yeah.
But others have come that are significantly better. But people who didn't make it out of that time was because they've always put it off. Like, we don't need that. People are still calling the restaurant. We don't need that service. It doesn't matter. We're always going to be good. Our locals love us. Pandemic hits.
Yeah.
It's a different story now. People are not calling like they used to. They're going to Grubhub, Uber Eats, boom, 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 and just using the tech.
Right.
And then you're seeing a huge dent in your business. Why? Because you didn't innovate. So I do love this idea of just picking one. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch, but you can just pick one at a time and say, hey, how does that impact my business for good or worse? And can I do something with it just to keep myself future-proof, or at least available in the future?
Yeah, I like the idea of you've been big on this diversifying, right?
Oh yeah.
But you have to keep yourself relevant, not only within the time that is now, but then also forward thinking. So, I don't know if I would say, okay, have your business and then get into, like, let's say, okay, have a media company and then get into a sewing company and then have your athletic wear for runners. Like, I don't know if I would go that far. I'm always thinking of the multiple ways of monetizing your passion. So there are different avenues and different entities that could be created based off what you know and what your expertise is. That can be, one business here, one business there, one business there. Now, playing devil's advocate, what if that passion, that expertise becomes null and void. Like it's just not relevant or needed because of technology anymore, right? I still think at a point of understanding and mastering what you do, you are already thinking about 2 steps ahead. So maybe not eventually, right now, you will see, but there's still ways as technology is growing, as new trends are happening, that something of an old can still stay current with the proper resources and tools. So you just have to find that vibe. Like you understand the climate that we're in, and we're going to adjust. That's not saying, if we use the example of Blockbuster, right? Due to technology and the needs of the customers, right? If Blockbuster was to pay attention, they could have pulled a Netflix, and Netflix wouldn't have even had a chance, right? But they didn't listen. They didn't adapt. They didn't see how things were a problem, and then how things went digital. They didn't see that until it was too late, and then when they tried it, it was just trash, right? But to sit there and say they wouldn't be relevant now, they could probably have figured out this whole password problem thing if they were still in the game, possibly. For those people who don't know what I'm talking about, Netflix is taking a really bad hit because they just have this really bad password situation where people are sharing their passwords and accounts and everything, and people are leaving Netflix instead of gaining new users. They're forever declining. Now, I only bring that up because that's a problem of the now, that who would have known if Blockbuster was still in the game may not have had that problem, because other softwares don't necessarily have that problem at all. You may have a 3-person minimum. You have a family plan. Apple has it. You have a 2, 3. If you do the family account, the second you log into another, if you don't have that family account, the second you log into another device, it catches it like, ho, hello. You can't use more. We're only going to make you work here. You're not going to work over there too. School's done it. Like it's not something that can't be done, but I only bring it up because these are the different things that keeps you relevant, that keeps you afloat, that keeps you a couple of more years. And if we're seeing things going into the metaverse, what is Netflix doing to get into the metaverse? What are they like? What new things of their app, not just integrating with the metaverse, but what are they adding to make the experience even better that will continue to work and cater to that new environment? That's how you stay true to what's happening. Now, of course, all brands die. Like, all brands die. Eventually. Some may have a very long life. Some may have 20 years, 30 years, 100 and some years, 200 some years. Like, whatever. They may have long lives, but they eventually die. Eventually. Maybe not the name, but those brands eventually die. I think, like, for example, or they transform into something new that isn't it. Like, who's to say if we're all in the metaverse that Louis physical would be relevant? Like, that is same way how, if we talked about Elliot Wilson, Source, Vibe, XXL, they all kind of died because we all went digital.
Right. Yeah, the magazine. Yeah.
Right. The magazine era died, and we got blogs, and we got all these digital stuff that it just didn't make sense. And now some are trying to, some have the subscription situation on a digital end, but from a printing standpoint, we don't have as many subscribers as we used to, getting it in the mail and everything like that. That's gone.
Right.
So it's
that's crazy.
It's really figuring it out. I don't think it's always diversifying with different kinds of genres, like how I said in the beginning, but I think if you are really, really good at what you do, you can monetize that in multiple different ways that will still keep, not all of them may last, but there is going to be something that will stand the test of time.
Yeah. I feel like part of me wants to say brands may die, but companies don't.
Yeah.
You know, and shout out to just our discussions here, because I feel like the biggest thing that has really hit with me personally is this idea of not naming things after you. Like that's still coming back time and time again. And I'm just like,
you want to change the podcast name? You want to change it?
Yeah, can we change it? Can we just
listen, listeners, viewers, we're going to keep Nicky and Moose, but maybe we want to add something in the beginning. Yeah. Presented by Nicky and Moose. I mean, like, what would you call this podcast? So in the comments, DM us, however you want to go, email us, whatever you want to do. What would you call this podcast? Because he's not going to let this go until it's called something else. I promise you, he's not. You're going to hear this over and over again. Shout out to Trunking and from scratch. You know who you are. But yeah, no, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, it just keeps coming up, and I'm just like, yo, it is difficult to run away from that, because I think of, for example, the insurance companies that were built by the Rockefellers and even the Kennedys in the early 1900s.
Right.
They're still alive today. I think like New York Life, and of course, because we're from New York, I know about this, and we see their building in the city all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, New York Life is like the oldest company on the planet, I think. They're like literally been around since like 1912 or something crazy like that. But it's like, yo, that's crazy. Imagine if they named it after the owner.
Right.
Now, might have not survived. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, y'all let us know, man. Maybe we'll remix the name. You know, the N and the M will become something different, like networking and marketing. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We'll change it, possibly.
We're not changing the podcast. We're just changing the name, because Moose is really, if y'all haven't really gotten these hints, he's really on that. So we may, hey, with the new name, we'll have a new intro. I already know who's going to take over. Shout out to CJ if you are listening. We need you for the intro when the audience picks a new name for the podcast. Whenever that may be, just stay on standby. All right? Just stay on standby. But let's talk about this final clip. And I know Moose loves this one. And I find it interesting, right? Because in the world of social media, it seems like we have no privacy. None. Well, a fan favorite, Wallo, says something about privacy, and we're going to talk about it.
Good morning. It was a time when privacy was priority, and it was the hierarchy of life. It was just like everything. Now we live in a world where as though if you don't put your business on social media, you're not living. You're boring. You ain't got nothing going on. You're unsuccessful. You're just a loser in life. If you don't have nothing to show, that means your life is just horrible. It's a nightmare. We got to understand that privacy is worth more than money. Your privacy is everything. See, privacy is a main ingredient to peace. See, we've been finessed that, oh, put your information out, put everything out there. And then you get mad when people criticize and they sit back and be critics of your life. And not just as they critics from afar, they critics up close. And they go ahead and write their opinion and their views of the life that you presented to the world to say you live in. Privacy is worth more than money.
Damn. Privacy is worth more than money. Yeah, that's big. That's big. You know, it's crazy. So I've been on social media, at least for my own personal account, social media hiatus for, I believe this coming December will be 2 years. All right. I haven't posted literally not one single thing. So at least till now, let's just call it 18 months, just for counting. 18 months.
But you popping on social media though. Your final words are one of our best views sometimes. I'm just letting you know this. You're popping on social media.
Well, shout out to you and the team for that, man. I'm incredibly blessed and I'm super grateful for it, without a doubt. But at least, and of course I was speaking from my own personal account, and I don't think I've ever really spoken to why or what made me make the decision, and I don't even know that I intentionally made the decision. I spoke about being in just a weird space about that time ago, and I couldn't really make sense of it probably until now. And that's what has me a little bit more open to different types of branding and marketing on social media today versus say 6 months ago or a year ago, where I was just like, no social media, social media. Like I was just almost against it. And I was trying to build my ways offline entirely, where now I'm like warming up to it again. Like, yo, social is pretty cool. Like, look at this. This is kind of cool. Yo, look at what Nicky's doing, right? Like that's still some of my favorite stuff to watch. But what I'm learning today, and I've always talked about, like, give yourself time to mature, because maturity is our biggest lesson. Like, you learn so much. And forgive me if I'm going a little bit deep here for a second, but bear with me on this, right? You'll notice that social media trains so much of us to live for now and not for later. And when I mean living for later, I don't just necessarily mean your older age or your future generations and legacy and generational wealth. I literally mean for a life in the hereafter, right? Like when you pass on, there are accounts. They're like, you're going to be held accountable for your actions. And if you're a believer of any kind, then you know that you're supposed to live for your hereafter or do for your hereafter more than you do for your right now. So if you're someone who's just so sucked into all of your energy, all of your effort, everything goes into trying to showcase that you're valuable right now, and I think you missed out on not just social media or the meaning of social media, but you've missed out on a big element of this thing called life. And I'm speaking to it because that is me. That was me, right? Like the only way I can understand the difference or what is most important between what I thought was important versus what actually is important was to just cold turkey shut it down. Just entirely, just like stop, no, nothing, at the expense of everything, at the expense of loss of income and a decrease in revenue and a progression in blah, 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 all these metrics, because who you become in the long run is still more important than any of those things. So just to stay on cue with what Wallo's saying, I do think some of us have been suckered into thinking that if I'm not doing this and this and this and this and that, then I'm not it. Right. When the truth is, you're it regardless. You're showing up on social is just it's a little icing on the cake. It's just a little like, hey, I'm really it, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of a flavor. Let me just kind of spend a little bit of time showing you about what my it looks like. So I think a lot more people, man, and I don't know that they may have even realized the effects that social may have had on their life. And my prayer and my hope is, of course, that one day they'll really realize it and treat it, because it can be dangerous. So I do value what Wallo's saying here, because it's like, yo, put things into perspective. Like back in the day, or at some point, privacy was the it factor. But because we started jumping to these metrics and doing anything to show that, hey, I too am valuable, we started shedding our privacy. We started tearing relationships. We started putting any and everything out there, and that created some turmoil.
Perception's everything.
Yeah.
Perception's everything. We tend to look at people's profiles and assume what their life is about, what it's not about. And I didn't get, after a while, like, why certain celebrities and certain actors did still hold that code of privacy when we're in such a new world. Like, some adapted to this new, like, let me show you a little bit more of my side of things. But there were some that just didn't, until I started talking with an actor, and he put this thought in my head of like, look, we have multiple roles we have to play. Like, I don't want them too caught up with a certain kind of lifestyle and think that I can't perform this role, or because of who I'm with, I can't, have this on-screen relationship, or it will cause some turmoil over here. So there still has to be a sense of curiosity and mystique to the profile. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? And then understanding that regardless if you try or not, social media is a highlight reel. So of course you're going to think this is all that's good and glamour, and if you don't show that, you ain't got it. It's just not, it's not it, and some things should still be to you. Like, but at the same time, I don't knock those people that show off everything, because it's like, yo, I want to document these new experiences. Actually, I don't think he'll mind saying this. Shout out to Maul, right? I was cracking on him. In E, right? I was like, yo, you gonna let a group of people outdo your Dubai trip? I didn't see these views. I didn't see this stuff from you. I saw a few things. You know what I mean? I saw y'all in the ATVs. I saw y'all on top of the highest building. I saw y'all there. But this over here, I didn't see you do this. I didn't see you do this, right? And he's like,
it's hilarious.
He's like, yo, not everything is meant for social media, Nicky. I said, I get it. However, he was showing it at 3 a.m. What do you mean? Like, what we talking about? Like, I get what you're saying. He's like, I didn't show you when we were in Emirates. Oh, but he did. So I don't know what you're saying, right? And he's like, nah, I don't gotta do that. My experiences is for me, the people who I'm with, and my wife. Like, I could, and it probably could get thousands of likes. And then what? I was like, and then I feel that I have to uphold that I got to show you everything. And I don't want to show you everything. Right? My wife loves me. That's it. She loved the experience. That's it. And so it comes with the, priorities. What really, are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this for just to get the approval of others? it really, and because I understand both sides, it's an interesting feeling for me. Cause I'm like, I'm big on documenting and showing certain things, but I'm also big on privacy.
Right.
I'm big on not showing every single, you don't know everything about me. You assume because of what I show you. And so
you're a pretty like publicly private person. It's weird. It's like the craziest thing ever. It's pretty smart.
you see, and everybody loves me. Everybody loves me.
Right.
But I think that's my balance of things. You know, it's like I don't want to compromise my expertise. So I never want my life to be the showcase. I want what I'm good at to be the highlight. And then you get a sprinkle of here and there. And until it makes sense for me to show more. And when I show more, it's just for a season. And then I go right back to letting you know who I really am. Like, you know why I'm here, right? And if we understand that social media is a tool, I don't necessarily have to be a reality TV show. Now, but then again, I know some who are. Like I know a good example is when Meek Mill used to show all the money in the cars, and he said, look, this is for motivation. This is not to say, look what I got, haha, nana boo boo. Yo, I came from nothing, from Philly, and I'm showing the people who are still there that, yo, it can happen. So I can understand when the motive is pure. I can understand when you're showcasing a lifestyle because this is bringing attraction to your business, right? I can understand those things. But I could also understand when he says privacy is a priority. And we know Wallo for what he puts out. He puts out these messages, he does his podcast, and it is what it is. That's it. My man is doing crazy things in the background. I think he just got a position at YouTube. Like,
wow.
Yeah, he's doing great things that don't necessarily have to be on social media for you to say that he's successful. That's why Maul, and we got to get Jamal King on the podcast. Isaiah, clip this up real quick. Maul, hello. You haven't been on the podcast. You haven't. You could go from 1 to 82 right now, and you haven't been on the podcast. You were there in the early days. We appreciate your support. However,
thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. But you haven't stepped over here for a while. Okay, you're requested, and if you care to join us, please let us know. We would highly appreciate that. And don't make me nag you and put all our phone calls on the gram because I have millionaire friends. You know what I mean? Don't make me be like other people. But I say all that because the way I met Maul, and you guys could see on our YouTube channel when we did interview him, he was not on social media. And I was like, everybody got to have a social media account. And he's like, I don't. And he had like 6 businesses. And he's a whole millionaire. And crazy. I'm like, what? Why are you not on social media? And I was already like in the lifestyle of everybody has to be on social media. So even if you don't floss or anything like that, you're showing that it's possible, right? You can show who you are. He's like, I don't care about that. That still doesn't make me more money. Then he eventually got on and did make him more money. I'm just saying.
These are actually factual, I believe.
It did make you more money, sir. But I understood, like, there's people in like real life, and I always laugh when in the Clubhouse days, like there's all these execs that were in Clubhouse that had like 20 followers. You go on their Instagram, 100 followers, 200 followers, 1,000 followers at most. They're big execs. You would have never known based off their following count. And that's what sometimes we do. We go based off their following count and we look at their pictures. They're in a boat with their dog. Like the most non-like, here are my relationships. And it's like, oh man, do I find a balance? Do I not find a balance? Do I just go too on privacy, or do I do all in? Do I have a healthy balance? I think that's just a struggle. I think not a struggle, but I just think that's a question that every brand, every business should have, every person should have when it just comes to this world that we live in.
That's so real. That's so real. Yeah.
He's like, yeah. But listen, you know the vibes. Follow us everywhere. Let us know. Here's a few things. We asked about feedback from the Elliot Wilson clip, right? We asked about a possible new Nicky and Moose title for this podcast, right? And then, are you private? Are you not? Like, what do you are on social media? Let us know that too. But let us know that on social media at Nicky and Moose everywhere. Little plug, you know what I mean? Little plug.
Perfect fit.
Moose, final words.
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to publicly say thank you. I think it's important that I publicly say thank you from time to time, because I am grateful for you and I really appreciate you as both a friend and a co-host, and all this other stuff that we get to do in this digital world / social media. I will say that. Big facts.
All right, have a good night.
All right, no final words today. See you later. Yeah. Nah, but I will say this, man. More important than what you acquire is who you become. So regardless of what's most trending or what's most profitable, remember that at the end of the day, you get to go to sleep with you at night. So you have to rest your head knowing that you've done good, honest, good work. So more important than what you acquire is who you become.